Welcome to Radio. We are back with little Dave. He's in a cabin in the woods. I am home as always.
Yeah,
So just wanted to welcome everyone. The buzz, I think, of the internet right now is Sam Sulek's first competition. And thought Dave and I would just speak upon that because we talked about Sam's diet in the past. And, I think the most interesting thing and telling of all this is let's acknowledge the fact that he's 22, 23 years old, did his own prep, as far as I know, and hit the overall in the first show he ever did. So you have to commend that.
yeah,
Um,
that's fucking cool. Like that doesn't happen a lot.
Correct. And I know a lot of people talk shit about like his deli meat and his cereal and milk and the way his training is not as technical and precise as all the experts say. But at the end of the day, like he got on stage, he won, and now he's on to the Arnold. And I think if anyone doesn't know out there, the Arnold is unique in the fact that it isn't like USA's or North Americans or the Nationals universe. Like the Arnold, anyone can compete in the whole world. So you get a lot of. I've been to a lot of Arnolds in my life, and I've seen like these just crazy ass Iranian dudes come in and just wipe the floor with people.
Yeah.
And now I will say North America is a little bit different because you get Canada, USA, and then obviously Mexico. So you do have a little bit wider range there with North Americans. But you figure USA's universe and nationals is only going to be American citizens, right? So with the Arnold being the world, and especially being classic, I would assume he's going to go against some really stiff competition because I looked at the guys he competed against and it was not as
Well, I mean, it's a local show.
correct. It was a level one, right? And to be expected, right? Like anyone who's been to local shows all know that you typically have one or two guys who know what they're doing and they're peeled in shape and have a lot of muscle, and then everyone else is trying to find their way, so to speak. Um, whether that be they didn't get close to lean enough, they don't have enough muscle to compete yet. But yeah, it's to be expected. So what were your initial thoughts? Because I know, because here's the sad thing, right? Like I've seen a lot of filtered shit. I've seen the real video, and then I've seen other videos where they're like somewhere in the middle. Because, listen, I think you and I have both been in enough shows to know that sometimes like cell phone camera footage doesn't portray even close to what you look like in person.
Hmm.
Um, so I tried to average the group, um, so to speak, in terms of.
Yeah.
So, what did you think when you first saw it?
I was actually it was wild. There that huge gray area between what people post on Instagram and what is on stage is always wild to me. Like I get it. We're always gonna post our best photos. We're not gonna post any weird shit. Like I suck at posing, side tricep. I don't think I've ever posted that on Instagram. NPC News Online has all of them,
Right.
but I mean, as that goes, it's just like, okay, wow, his legs are a lot smaller than they are in his videos,
Correct. Yes. Yep.
and it's like, Jesus fuck.
Yeah. And then I think on top of that, if I'm speaking about his lower body in general, not only were they downsized, but they also weren't being posed. Like
Yeah.
they were just soft. Now there are some shots where you could see like the VMO full separation, but in terms of being split to the hip, I just don't think he has the muscle control or awareness yet, or maybe it was nerves.
Could have,
Because
yeah, it definitely could have been a mixture of that too.
you know, as many times as you and I have been on stage, obviously the nerves are still going to be there to some extent. But I've never had over 1 million people tuning in to watch me compete. So I can only
Oh
imagine
yeah.
the pressure that it's accompanied with that. Uh,
Yeah.
so yeah, I mean, I think the legs being extremely downsized. I know a lot of people are like, oh, well, they match his upper body, and I just don't think so. I don't think those legs are as dense and as full as that upper body presents. Um,
Yeah.
they're definitely not as crisp. Again, I think that it does has to do with some posing. Before you and I hit record, I said to you, I was like, I think he looked like someone who was undercarbed and needed water. Um,
Yeah.
Now, the naked eye or the inexperience would say, well, Chris, like he looks soft. Why would you want to give him food and water? I'm like, because that muscle wasn't blasting against the skin. Like
Yeah.
that's one of your strengths is if I get your fullness right and your water right, it presses hard against the skin. If I have you undercarbed and underwatered, you look like you're in worse shape than you actually are. And a
Hmm.
lot of people, and even coaches, don't understand that. So
Yeah, very true.
I think that, again, if he did his own prep, that this will come with experience. And if you do coach yourself, I always encourage people to, you need to run mock preps, like get ready early and travel in 2 to 3 weeks out and see what you look like and do an honest assessment of it. Like play around with water, play around with food. And I think a lot of times when you look at, what he tended to eat leading into that show, I always wonder too, is like how much variable that plays as opposed to you. I know meal two is always going to be this, and we keep that the same.
Yeah.
When you don't have constants within your plan nutritionally, can you accurately account for that?
Yeah. It makes it a lot harder. That's for sure.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah. Now, I know you also said you thought it looked like someone who had played with a little too heavy with diuretics.
Mhm.
And I agreed with that as well. Like where you typically see it's what John used to always call the spider look, right? Your appendages just wither away.
Mhm.
You're still thick in the middle, meaning your torso, but legs and arms, which to me, when I assessed his physique, like that's where they were the most lagging. Um,
Mhm.
and I know in classic, massive arms may not be a necessity, so to speak, but they add to the aesthetic of the front and back double bicep all day long, in my opinion.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I hate to say this too, but I wasn't expecting him to do classic.
Agreed. Agreed. I That's a bodybuilder who's just
Yeah.
smart.
Yeah. It blew my mind. I can't believe he was it like 206 was his weigh in?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, wasn't that guy like 250?
And he wasn't out of shape. Like he wasn't even sloppy fat.
Yeah.
So, speaking to those legs and that statement you just made, I mean, it could have just been they could have cardioed the shit out of him.
Yeah.
Again, I didn't follow his prep as close as I'm sure as a lot of
Yeah.
people have, but if you are spending all your time on cardio and training, where is the easiest way to neglect? And that's posing because you don't have the energy for it. And I think that a lot of times, like what people don't understand is when you cardio yourself in the ground and you're still training hard, what's going to take a back seat is because you only have so much energy throughout the day to use. And if you're a first time competitor, posing is typically underdone. And like I know a bunch of people had picked his posing apart, and sadly I agreed with them, like which is
Yeah.
hard to deal with because you and I both know it's not what you have, it's what you present.
Yeah.
So it's a interesting topic, so to speak. I think, his moment of reckoning will be the Arnold, you know. So I think a lot of people are talking about how he's going to turn pro at the Arnold, and I'm like, man, like if that happens, I'm going to have to eat my words. I do not foresee that happening.
Yeah. That's not something I see happening either. Uh, that is, yeah, that would be the most political thing I've ever seen in my life. Like, if that's what that is, it's just like, all right, cool. Social media gets you pro cards.
Yeah, no shit. It would completely destroy the integrity of the sport, in my opinion. One of the biggest things that I've always loved about bodybuilding or classic or whatever bikini, fill in the blank, is that it doesn't matter who you are as a person. It's what you
Yep.
present on that stage. It doesn't matter if you're good or bad. It doesn't matter if you're rich or poor. It doesn't matter if you have a good job or no job. Like, what do you look like compared to the people standing to your right and left? And I want to believe that wouldn't social media wouldn't prevail, but at the end of the day, it's a business. So yeah.
Yeah.
Uh, does he look like Arnold? A little bit.
Yeah.
So, if he times this right and turns pro, like awesome. Um, I think if that happens, congratulations to him. But he has a lot to work to do to compete in the pro league. If that is
Oh,
the
yeah.
case,
Yeah.
um,
He's definitely not turning around and competing in the Arnold.
I would not think so. No, or Pittsburgh, New York Pro, none of that. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, Again, like I'm gonna go back to this. I look at his physique and I think underdeveloped bodybuilder. I don't think classic at all.
Mhm.
Now God knows, like maybe he can put on the muscle in the right places and change that and fix his posing. Um, but yeah, when I see that, I do not. Classic does not jump out at me when I look at his physique at all.
Yeah, yeah, for sure on that. And I mean, that should be resonating with a lot of people.
Yes,
Like, that's always such a hard one to break to people because I know it's the popular division right now for men,
right,
but that's one thing I've never gotten is like, why are we doing something to be popular versus like do something you're good at?
right.
You
Yes,
know, I could have done classic my second show barely because my weight cap was still 160. You know, I had no interest in it.
yeah,
And then imagine if I stayed in classic and I stayed around the 160. I would be so fucking terrible at this sport.
right. Yes.
Like there's not a thing in the world we could do to make me good at classic weighing 165.
And think about how much wasted potential.
Yeah. How many wasted fucking years?
Right. Yeah, you're
Because
also
I mean, that was our second year working together. I weighed 165
yes. Yep. Yep.
on stage, by the way.
Correct. Yes. You know what's funny about all that is I remember back to that time and you got off stage that first show and I can't remember how I need to look up the emails. I'm sure I have them somewhere. I'm like, so you're gonna do bodybuilding, right? And you're like, yeah.
Yeah, pretty much. That was a good question. I was like, I thought you knew this.
Right. So, it's yeah, I always laugh because you never when you have a client, you never know how that situation is gonna go. You know, I'll give you a good example. I had a lady that I worked with for at least one season, maybe two, maybe well, an all season in a contest. And I swear to you, every week she came to train with me in person, like her division would change. You know,
Yeah,
she had placed well at the Arnold Amateur and a couple national shows in figure. And then she wanted to do bikini. And then it was like, oh, maybe wellness. And then it was like back to bikini. And it was like, it heavily was dictated by the person she was dating at the time because she was someone who she liked muscle and her body was good at putting it on, but I don't think he was about it. So it was always this like back and forth roller coaster. And I remember telling her, I'm like, you belong in figure, and I don't care what anyone says, like that's where you need to be. And she just didn't want to hear it. Um,
yeah,
yeah.
that's
And
funny. I mean, I've had that conversation with some people, and it's funny. Like, there's one girl, and she's like, "What division should I be in?" And I was like, "Women's physique or figure?"
right.
And she's like, "Not bikini." And I was like, "Do you want me to point out why?"
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I was like, "You like training, right?"
Yeah. Yeah.
And she's like, "Yeah." And I was like, "With where you're at now, your prep is gonna look like not fun in the gym and a lot of fucking cardio."
Correct.
And she was like, that actually makes a lot of sense. And from that point forward, she's like, I'm totally fine doing figure. Like,
Like,
she's like, I still get to train hard.
I think from the outside looking in, it's always obvious, right? Like it's glaringly obvious for
Yeah.
someone looking in. But I think when you're in your own skin thinking that, and I think with as popular as Bumstead is in or was for Classic, I think what people are missing is that if you watch his pro debut in bodybuilding, it wasn't that Classic made him. Chris Bumstead made himself, and he would have done everything he's done now, in my opinion, even if he would have done bodybuilding.
Oh,
Um,
yeah.
and people get that twisted. Like they're like, "Oh, it's about the classic. He's popular." No, no, no. You guys don't understand. His physique is incredible. His marketing is top notch, and his personality draws you in. He would have been successful in life no matter what division he did. He probably could have even done fucking. I almost said men's bikini, men's physique. I don't think it mattered. I really don't believe it mattered. Do you? Like,
No, not really. I mean, that's what we need more of in this sport. Is I actually just had this conversation yesterday with a person,
right,
and they asked me what my favorite division was, and I was like, I honestly don't really have one.
right.
Like in the entire realm of fitness, I think so many things are cool,
Yes,
and there's a huge line of thinking they're cool and wanting to do them. Like I
Yes.
was like everything from strongman to people who run marathons, I think is notable,
Yes.
and it all depends on who that person is.
Yeah.
Like the thing what drives me up a wall with whatever reason why it is in men's physique is those guys seem to be douchebags,
Right.
and it's just like, they're flaunting everything they have. They're wearing like crazy ass fucking shit. They have like their Prada bags or whatever that is now, and it's just like, why are we like this?
Right. What's really interesting is I remember when men's physique started, and that's what it was. It was the second season after I started bodybuilding, like competitively.
Hmm.
And to me, it was viewed amongst our community as like these guys just wanted a shortcut because they don't want to have to grow their legs, which for most guys takes years to develop.
Yeah,
So I think that's where it started. And then it
yeah,
developed into like these dudes are freaks, man. Like, you go to a good regional show and you'd have guys back there backstage who belonged in bodybuilding trunks, you know,
yeah,
but they weren't. They wanted to chase that elusive dream, and I think it's very much like you said, like that men's physique category is a lifestyle. It's almost like this like fashion slash bodybuilder. Like where you and I both know, the guys that are on the Olympia stage, those physiques are not obtainable.
hmm,
No, if you saw them in the gym training arms or chest or shoulders, you wouldn't know they weren't a bodybuilder. Like I really believe that, based upon the muscle they have. But it's like you said, and maybe you and I are just so tilted towards bodybuilding and like the old school where all this came from. I always viewed the men's physique as like people who were shitting on bodybuilding because they don't appreciate where like that they earned their spot through guys like Arnold and Ronnie and Jay and Dorian and Lee Haney. Like, like they don't appreciate that. Where you and I are intelligent enough to step back and be like, hey, because of those gentlemen, we're able to do what we do and be able to coach as many people as we do. So it's like you said, like I appreciate absolutely every division.
yeah,
Because it's remarkable the ones who win are in shape and we all do the same shit.
yeah. And they're all very difficult.
Yes. Yeah.
Like there's nothing easy about any division.
No, no.
Like people laugh at the call bikini the easiest one, and it's like I would love to see you guys do this at a high level
Right.
because not only do they don't really get to have that much muscle, but they have to put it in selective areas. And it's
Yep.
like if you don't understand how to do that training wise, you end up in a different division. You're gonna lose.
Yep.
And it's like it's that simple, but that's complicated.
I challenge anyone who says that about bikini to it's like they're called squeams. Do you know what those are, Dave?
No.
So it's like a waist
Oh, is that
trainer,
like the waist trainers?
but
Yeah.
it has those hooks.
Yeah.
Anytime you see those bikini girls walking around, they have those on. And I challenge any guy or girl out there that says bikini's a joke, wear one of those things all day long and eat your meals and see what it feels like. It's death. Like it doesn't feel good. Like, but you watch any of those girls' videos, they always have some sort of waist trainer on. And it fucking feels terrible. I'm not saying it works, but that's what that division feels like they have to do in order to be competitive. So, I mean, listen, it's never there's no point of your day where being that lean is easy.
No.
Um, and I think that's hard for a lot of people to understand. Like, yes, there's levels of leanness to this, but they're single digits. And for most people, that's not easy to maintain
Yeah.
on a yearly basis.
Hmm.
And I mean,
Super true.
go ahead.
I was just agreeing with that.
No, and listen, that posing and it takes just as much effort. Like there's so much, I guess, other things that are involved in that, like your hair, your makeup, your skin color, like how you present on the stage, like how you walk, how you stand, like all that shit you and I don't have to think about.
Oh yeah, dude. You can go down a bikini division and their hair, their how they style their hair, what color it is, how long it is.
Yep.
You know, all of those aspects play a role into their appearance, into their showing.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
It's not just like for me and you, it's like we're judged from the neck down.
Right.
Like that's a good thing. I'm not a pretty person,
Same.
you know. And that's, I mean, that's part of the game.
Right. And you and I could wear any color opposing trunks as long as they fit.
Yeah,
And if our physique is good, that's all that matters. Like,
yeah,
you know, obviously
yeah.
it's
We
things
don't
like,
have to match our suit to our eye color and
no,
hair color.
in jewelry and listen, here, any of the females that I work with I always feel terrible for them. Like, oh, I'm getting my makeup done at 3:30.
Yeah,
Oh my God. Like you and I are still sleeping. Like we're
yeah, exactly.
I'm like, damn. And then like to think you can't like touch your face pretty much all day.
Yeah,
Mess with your hair. Like, you and I like where it's like, oh, we fucked our tan a little bit. Girls will fix it backstage. Not a big deal. They're like, oh, well, my completely right eyelash is off. I'm like, oh, fuck.
yeah, yeah. No joke.
So it's listen, it's again, I've worked with every competitor in every division. At the end of the day, if you get in true shape, it's commendable. Um, and to kind of go back to that Sam topic, I would if I was him, I'd look at those videos and pictures, and I think I'd almost get angry about it and say, listen, I got to get my because I mean, listen, his glutes were not in a good spot. Uh,
Yeah,
so he's got to get fat off
yeah.
the.
If you just give people knowledge, right? He obviously had a suit covering up most of it. So
Yes,
two things: he knew that was a thing because that's why he bought that suit.
correct.
Right? There's a reason why there's different classic physique suits. Some of them have higher ass cheeks on them.
Yes.
Because the people with the ones with the higher ass cheeks, they know they're shredded.
Mhm.
And when there's a line and an actual fold between your glutes and hamstring, that's not a striation. That's a fold. And I think that one's comical because it's just like obviously there's fat there.
Yes. Yep. There's fat there, it's not dried out, and it's not shrink wrapped, which means to me, you got to step on the gas pedal for 4 weeks. Now,
Yeah.
the problem he ran into is when you look at stringy legs, like not full legs and soggy glutes, that's a tough equation to balance. Um,
Yeah.
so
Yeah. And could that be a mixture of how he got peaked? What I mean, if he took a ton of diuretics and he's just flat because of that, the thing is being flat doesn't make you just lose, 20 pounds of muscle. And where his legs are at, I mean, being flat versus them being full, it's probably not even an inch. So like his legs are still small.
right.
But if his glutes really are, if that's just a water issue from that, he still has a couple weeks there.
Yeah, agreed. Right. Yeah. To get that skin to look like the skin that was on his abs and his obliques and his
Yeah.
that and shit, even his low back was probably the most in shape of his entire
Oh yeah,
body.
his low back was nuts.
So it's not he just has to make his whole body even, which as you and I both know, and I think John always told me, he's like, that's people's superpowers. If you have a competitor who evenly gets lean, that is a huge genetic like to the top.
Yeah.
Some guys are harder from the front and the back. Some guys are harder up top in the lower body, or vice versa. For years, I was that way. I was way harder through the lower body than my upper body because I didn't have
Yeah.
the muscle and the density there. So,
I mean, I'm the same way as you. My lower body's always stupid hard. And then like my front gets leaner than my back, and then my upper back likes to hang on longer than my lower back. And that's like the most annoying thing is like I'll have kidney striations before my upper back's lean.
right, right. Yes, yeah, yeah. And again, I know a lot of people who aren't in like deep of bodybuilding probably have never even considered that's like, oh, just get the fat off. It's like, yeah, it doesn't always come off even, bro.
Yeah.
Which becomes a fine balance. That's something that John taught me. He was like, Chris, like you can't lose body parts to get glutes fully striated. He's like, if your legs wither away, if you lose upper chest, if you lose lat and shoulders and arms, he's like, are those shredded glutes worth it? And he's like, you have to find that balance of like where you lose muscle and where fat comes off, and a lot of that stems from the off season too. Like if that's one of your problems, you're gonna have to keep your body fat lower in the off season, and
Yeah.
that's not a sexy thing to talk about. But I mean,
Yeah. And or keep body fat lower in the off season. But if you have parts that wither away, like my arms, for example, You just got to make them bigger so they have room to wither away.
Correct. Yes. Yeah. And that's something that a lot don't understand, right? It's if you blow out a body part, I mean that's the Dorian Yates theory, right? Like just get huge and
Yeah,
then get all the fat off and realize you're going to sacrifice a little bit of muscle, like to
yeah,
be killed. And that's why he won because he was by far the leanest and biggest. Well, guess what? When you're fucking 310 in the off season and you suck down to 250, yeah, no shit.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be very curious to know like what he's going to do or what the game plan is from now until the Arnold. But I mean, I think his YouTube series will blow up even more because he has all those young kids who follow him and look up to him, which is really cool, right? Because I actually appreciate his training intensity. Uh,
Yeah, I honestly, if people took a gander at his trading and was like, I'm going to do that, he's changed the life of so many people
Agreed.
because I don't know what on earth we're doing now with training where it's, everything has to be scientifical and like that. You can't have anything sloppy. And it's like, that depends so much. Like when I was 16, I remember doing bent over rows with two plates,
Yeah.
at the high school gym. And it probably looked terrible.
Right. Yeah.
You know, my lower back was stupid strong because I wrestled,
Right.
and so was my neck.
Yeah.
But like that probably saved me from a lot of problems.
Right. Yes.
But also, I mean, just getting stronger got saved me from a lot of problems.
Agreed. Yep. Yep. You know, that's something that I see so many guys not chasing anymore, which is really weird to me. Is I remember wanting to like anytime I got to the next plate on a bench press or a squat or a deadlift on a machine on the next level of dumbbells, that fired me the fuck up. Like that's one of the reasons I love to train. And I know that there are people are gonna say, "Oh, well, Chris, like you're a bodybuilder." I'm like, yeah, but I knew that getting stronger correlated to more muscle.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
yeah, as you train, like you're going to get better at refining your skills of training. So then my thought process is always, all right, cool. If I'm barbell rowing two plates now for a shitty 10, if I'm eventually get up to 275 with the form's better, I'm going to be even bigger.
yeah.
Like,
And sometimes it's even just a matter of fact, like me doing a bent over row with two plates now versus when I was 16. Like it's the same goddamn barbell,
right,
but there's a lot more muscle. I have a lot more weight,
right.
and like I've been doing it for another, almost 14 years.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
So it's not like, I mean, and people freak out about that. Like, you don't need to change things either, you know? And like just doing something like what's hard and growing and learning from that to do it again the next week
right,
that's what bodybuilding is about. It's not about what's the most optimal. It's not about the least I can do and make progress from. Like we're both in that camp. It's like, what's the most I can do and still progress?
right. Yeah, yeah. Because that helps
Without burning
too.
myself into a hole.
Right. Like, I always sleep easy at night when I walk away from the gym and I'm like, man, I could not have given one more thing in that session. Um, I had a leg day on Saturday that Chaz got on film, and it was one of the best training sessions of my life. And like he texted me a couple hours after we got home, and he's like, "How your legs feel?" I'm like, they're fucked. And he was like, "That was one of the best days I've ever seen you have." And I'm like, "Yeah, like that." I remember getting in my truck, leaving Elite at like 10 o'clock on a Saturday morning, and thinking, "Man, like, that's it. I've got better today," and that
Mhm.
felt great. Where I think we've all had sessions where we may have thought, man, the effort could have been better, or, I wasn't as connected mentally to that exercise or physically that I wanted, or the pump wasn't as good, or I didn't have the strength and power and explosiveness that I was expecting. But the power in walking away knowing the job is done is no different than when I finish my meals for the night and I'm like, fuck yeah, check one more day fully off. Like, and I think not enough guys put enough stock in that. Like they may do that in the pre-contest, but not in all season. And
Yeah,
you and I both know like that's when your physique's built. Um, so
yeah. I mean, that's another reason why a lot of people don't change year to year.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is, I mean, doing what you want to do versus what you should do
Yes.
leaves this much fucking gray area, you know? And that gray area doesn't do the work for you.
I mean, I posted that hack squat, I think 2 weeks ago, of me just missing that one rep and locking out because of the pain tolerance, right? And I told him before because I did the same shit. And I told him before I started, I said, I swear to God, if I lock this out again, you put a fucking plate on there and we go again. And he's like, okay. And I was so dialed in mentally for that. And I always just wonder how many people force that kind of pressure on themselves. Because I mean, before I would rack that, and listen, it wasn't a lot of weight. It isn't like 4 plates with a reverse band is heavy. But I knew like the set in duration was 2 minutes and 42 seconds.
Mm.
So that
Yeah,
is
that's a place where a lot of people don't go.
right. Right. I mean, listen, from rep three on, it's absolute hell. And there's just no way around it. Excuse me. You have to run face first in that pain. Like everything here is saying, bro, you're good. Your quads are your strong point. You're okay. Like rack it, no one will know. Well, I do. Like, so I always have to wonder what goes through individuals' minds that are okay leaving some room for, I don't know if air is the right word, but some room to progress. You know, the difference between an RPE of 8 and 9 and 10 or 11. Like all the science will tell us that that doesn't matter. But I don't know. I kind of
Well, I
laugh.
think that my favorite part is we have the data. Go to any bodybuilding show.
Yeah.
Like you can see who trained hard
Yes.
and who didn't.
Right.
I'm
Yeah.
not saying people are going to be out of shape or in shape, but go take a gander at someone who has actually always a great example because he's a freak. His name's Roger. He goes to Butler. And that man just has trained like an animal for 15 years, you know. And I always use him as an example because like he doesn't put a ton of thought into it. He just works his face off.
Right.
Like,
Yes.
he's not crazy scientific. He just goes in. You know, I plenty of times he's walked in. He goes talk to Bronson. He's like, "What are we trading today?" Bronson's like, "Oh, we got legs." He's like, "Oh, hell yeah!" He doesn't even know what's happening, and then he just goes and murders things for 2 hours.
Right.
You know, and when he gets on stage, there's a level of hardness and graininess to that guy's physique. Like you just know that guy likes the gym.
Right. Yes. Yes. Agreed. I think a lot of times people will ask me that, like about my legs. They'll say, "Oh, well, Chris, like that's just got to be a genetic body part for you." And I'm like, "Is it?" Like, I don't think so. I think I just love training them so damn much. So, like you just described to that guy at your gym, right? Like, I try to find ways to make it harder and to go places that I know in my heart most won't. I mean, listen, you've lunged with me in that back parking lot at Elite. How many dudes would have just been like, go fuck yourself and throw those chains off and walk back to their car? Like,
Dude, I don't think most of them made it even to that parking lot.
valid point. Yes. And I mentally, that's what I think about, right? Like, let's say I'm going to take two chains and lunge all the way down, lunge all the way back. I'll get like down there and you're fucked, man. Like, it says you did this with me. Like, heart rate's out of control. It's hot as fuck. Like, sweat's pouring off every orifice of your body. And you know how easy it would be? Like, no one would know when I'm back there by myself when Chaz isn't filming if I just walked to my truck. No one knows.
Mm-hmm.
And I could post on Instagram how great of a session it was and show a pump because listen, I'm gonna be pumped whether I come back or not. Like,
Mm-hmm.
but I would know, and that would drive me so batshit crazy, which kind of leads me into a really funny question that someone asked me last week, and I know you'll appreciate this. Like, he was like, Chris, of that set of 15, what are the most important reps of that set? And what he was getting at was high reps are stupid because you just need to count the hard ones. And my response to him was every rep counted. Like all of them. All 15 in my mind are important. Um, where
Well, I think that's a really fun mind game because, like,
yeah,
going to a high rep set, you had me do a set of 100 on leg press once.
yeah, yeah,
And I'm going to give some insight. The first 20, I wondered how I was going to do another one.
correct.
And then I got to 30, and I wondered how I was going to do another one.
Yeah,
And I got to 40, and I didn't know if I was going to do another one. And this set took me 10 minutes, by the way.
yeah,
10 minutes. And the last 10 of those, I couldn't even feel anything below my belly button.
right,
Like it was on fire. Just it's been passed on fire. It was on, like it was legitimately just like it was past that point. Like
right.
around the 50 mark, they were on fire, you
Yes.
know?
Yeah,
And that that that's where so many people get lost in this game is, did that set of 100 build anything with my quads? Maybe a little bit. But you know what it did do?
yes. Agreed.
And how many people can't tap into this? And like I said, at 20, I could have stopped at 20. By the way, this was 7 plates for 100,
Right,
you know, and most people could have stopped at 20 minutes. Like that was a fantastic set.
right. Yeah,
And that's the difference between you're just going to where your body's hard than versus where your mind tells you to stop. And where your mind tells you to stop and saying, fuck you, I'm going to get some more.
yep. I
Because that's, I mean, we all know this is the body does not fail uh, first. Your brain does. And teaching that is the lost form of what's happening nowadays because of all the science. Because everybody thinks they can outsmart the weights, they can
right.
outsmart the muscle growth.
Yeah,
And it's not a matter of outsmarting. You just have to work the shit out of it.
yeah,
Like the biggest dudes I've ever met, all they did was train their fucking faces off and eat a lot of food,
right. Yes.
you know? And they had a system in place to do that.
Yeah,
And the system's different for everybody,
yeah,
but it wasn't an exact science. Like if you ask me, like, how many reps did you need to do with that? I'd be like, I have no idea. I just did it. I just went till it didn't move.
yep,
There's no, oh, I did 8 reps, so I'm going to grow today.
yeah, yeah, yeah. You said that perfectly because another example where most of the science guys would tell you it's pointless is that destroyer set that John had us do for 100 reps with like hanging swings.
Yeah, that's another one. Like, it's funny because like you can't put that one on paper and people will be like, well, that's stupid. Go ahead and do it. And when your rear delts are 2 inches off the back of your body because of how much blood is in them, you'll be like, fuck, this is weird. That obviously works.
Yes. Yep. Yep. The sad thing is what those people who adhere to that system will say is, oh, that's intermuscular swelling that can cause any muscle growth. Or, oh, you just use a bunch of shit. And that's, of course, like the androgen receptors in your shoulders, they'll respond to anything. And that is their justification for they aren't willing to do that shit. And listen, you and I have done that set so many times that we both know it's agony. Because as you described with that leg press, you get to like 25, 30 hanging swings, and you're like, how in the fuck am I going to do 30 more before dropping to the weight? Like, and you feel like at the end, your hands are like maybe moving like this. You're like, and your rear delt is just throbbing. It hurts so bad. And your chest hurts because you're like pushing down on that shit for God knows how long. I've never timed one of those sets. But you and I both know if you finish all 100 reps of those, you stand up and you're like, yeah, that's going to make me better.
Yeah.
And it's not because a peer-reviewed study from PubMed said so. It's because I'm not a fucking moron. That I know if I go home and I eat my fucking food and rest, my shoulders are going to get bigger. And why do I think that? Because I watched them grow over a decade of doing that stupid shit.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. I think that's the craziest thing is like we have no, the meatheads don't know anything what they're talking about building muscle because they take supplements, and it's like wild. I mean, like I've put on 15 pounds of muscle a year on average
Yep.
for, you know, going on 8 years straight.
Right.
And the amount of people who have actually done that, we're probably talking about 5% of population of bodybuilders,
Agreed.
you
Right.
know, and there's no merit in that. Oh, he took supplements. It's like wild. Most bodybuilders are. They're not even doing that.
I always have to laugh because I told Angela the other night, I was like, because on those videos, people still just say synthol, oil king, oil field, right? And I'm like, what's really funny is I was like, it took me 20 years to get shoulders that I'm like truly proud of. And they're so fucking developed at this point in my life with a pump that people think I shoot them with synthol. I was like,
Yeah.
when you think about that, I'm like, man, like it's pretty fucking cool, right?
Yeah, dude. That's the first. I remember I posted something with like my rear delt in it, and some dude's like, "How much oil you put in your rear delt?" And I'm like, "Good amount of rear delt." This was basically like none.
you know, if you and I had some magic synthol protocol, we'd have way bigger arms. Um,
Oh yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's what I laugh about that all the time. Actually, I remember back when I was working. I was at a local gym,
mhm.
and this was like probably between our second and third competition.
Okay.
One of the older guys who was always a member there, he's like, "What are you doing for your arms? Are you putting synthol in those?" And I was like, "Bro, these are like 17 inches." It's like I'd fucking cry. Like, and, like I would be so pissed off if I had 17-inch arms and I was putting oil in them.
Right. Yeah. 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 Oh, yeah.
And
Yeah.
his face when I said that, he was like, "Oh," and I was like, "Yeah, dude, like, what the fuck would I be doing that?"
Yeah. 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 It's always just have to chuckle at that shit where it's like, they're like, oh, oil, oil. I'm like, okay, let's get this right. So according to you, the only reason any of my body parts are big because I have oil in them, I'm like, I'm pretty sure you can't shoot fucking synthol on my hamstrings. Like, don't know how you would do that, but okay.
Right.
Um, yeah. Yeah, this is really funny. Chris Schaub even told me before the first time like we trained in person together, he's like, man, he's like, the first time I saw you with a delt pump on the internet, he's like, I wanted to message you and be like, how much oil you put in those fucking things? He's like, then I saw him in person. I was like, those things are fucking so fibrotic. He's like, you can see the strands of muscle in there. And I'm like, yeah, man, I was like, I just know how to get a big pump in my rear delts, and I guess maybe it looks blown out of oil when I post a photo of it. But I was like, listen, if they're fucking just a body part that I obsessed about, and grew with,
Hmm.
fuck you just gotta kind of chuckle at that. But I don't know. I'm sure with the contest season upon us to I think kind of wrap today up, like what I would really encourage everyone to do is, you know, when you're assessing where you currently are at in the competitive year. So you're getting ready to start prep. I've already started mine. Always give yourself time to play with. And that way, if you run into an issue, you get sick, you have some kind of weird injury, you have a body part that's being frustrating for not coming in shape, you have the wiggle room to play with it. Um,
Hmm.
and I mean, I think that's to me the biggest takeaway if anyone can learn from Sam is those two things is give yourself plenty of time, and then number two, practice the fuck out of your posing. Like,
Yeah. I think was this Chris Aceto who said whenever you start a prep, you're always fatter than you think you are.
yes,
You always have less muscle than you think you do.
right, yeah, yeah. And that is incredible advice. Like,
Yeah.
and the other piece of that is I don't care how many shows you've done. If you don't regularly practice posing, you're not in posing shape.
Yeah.
Everyone can hit a side chest after a chest day and make it look good. But can you hold that bitch after doing a front relaxed, front double, front lat spread and not shake? Like
Yeah.
you and I both know how damn difficult that is. I know it looks easy. Um, or you may watch some of your favorite bodybuilders who practice the like Samson, for example. That dude makes posing look so freaking easy. But it's because he practices it. Like,
Yeah.
and I always tell a lot of my guys too, is as you know this, like a lot of times if you put good hard posing practice in, you can get away with less cardio.
Yeah.
So,
That's a fact.
it brings another level of hardness to the muscle too. Like if I think I saw a video of Hani where he used to have all of his guys, if they had a lagging body part or one that maybe didn't show as much as detail, is he'd make them pose their muscle like between sets. So if it's back, right, you're doing, dumbbell rows, you do 10 on the right, 10 on the left, and then you do a 10-second back double bicep. And in the next set, you do 10 rows, and you do a back lat spread. And then you do your third set, and then you do a back relaxed. And like that's something I know I've used with guys and girls in the past is like if they have a body part, like if their glutes are always not showing detail, pose them motherfuckers. I used to
Yeah,
stand when I trained people and I just squeeze my glutes.
yeah.
Just squeeze them.
I mean, on the opposite side of that too, like if I find some people who don't know how to like fire muscle correctly, isometric contractions, which
Oh
is
yeah.
supposed to,
Yep.
like how many times have you taken someone like, okay, cool, we're just gonna set this here, curl this, but it doesn't move, you know? And they're like, oh shit, I can feel my bite, and it's like do it in a safe manner and like for hamstrings, that's probably one of my favorite things. Just like taking the seated hamstring curl and making it so it only goes to that halfway point,
Yes.
and then just pinning the stack at the bottom, and then just have them push into it as hard as they can for like a minute.
Right.
They're
Yep.
like, this burns. And then you put it back to normal settings and have them do their set, and they're like, wow, this is never felt my hamstrings before. It's like you probably weren't using them as well.
You know, I'm glad you said that. Something else really cool, because I think a lot of guys have a problem connecting to their side delts. If that's you and you're listening, I have a homework assignment for you. Go inside of a door frame, like a normal door frame, not a big one, but a normal one. Arms straight by your side, and then just literally push against the door. So envision me standing here, the doorway's here. I'm just going to drive out to the side and try to shove that door away from me, the door frame away from me. It is beyond effective. And if you can do that, then take dumbbells and put them in your hands, and it's the same shit. So
Mhm.
isometrics. Yeah.
Science.
Yeah. Oh God, you just gotta laugh at that shit. Yeah. So until next time, Chris and Dave, meatheads with a sprinkle of science. We'll see you guys.